영상 초기에 앞서 마크유스코는 미국의 유명한 투자자이자 모건 크릭 캐피털 매니지먼트의 설립자 겸 CEO입니다. 그는 비트코인과 소량의 이더리움 그리고 상당량의 솔라나를 보유하고 있다고 밝혔습니다. 유스코는 비트코인의 미래 가치에 대해 낙관적인 전망을 가지고 있으며 비트코인이 향후 수십 년 내에 50만 달러에서 100만 달러까지 상승할 것으로 예측하고 있습니다. 또한 그는 비트코인이 이제 사라지지 않는 영역에 들어섰다고 설명하며 과거에는 비트코인이 0으로 갈 가능성이 있다고 말했지만 이제는 불가능하다고 생각한다고 밝혔습니다. 이러한 그의 발언과 투자 행보는 비트코인에 대한 그의 강한 신뢰를 보여줍니다. 마크유스코의 비트코인에 대한 인터뷰 영상 시작하겠습니다.
Outcome. I use Amazon as a good example. So Amazon actually has the same volatility, believe it or not, over its 30 years as Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin's only been around 16 years, but they both have an 80 volatility. And people say, oh, that's not right. I'm like, well, it's just math, and I can show you the data. And here's the crazy thing about Amazon. Amazon stock has 80 volatility because of disagreement on the future. Like, what do you mean? Well, there are still people that don't think e-commerce is ever going to be a big thing. Like, well, it kind of is, and every 2 days something shows up on my front porch, so I know we're users, but not everybody in the world is using Amazon every day. And so every year, including this year, like right now, Amazon's had a double-digit drawdown. On average, this is the crazy part, on average, it's 31%. So every year for 30 years, well, when was the right time to sell? Never. So Bitcoin's the same way, right? People look at the price of Bitcoin but every day between then and now, the price has been volatile. And yet I don't think about the price at all, this is the long-winded way of saying the reason price doesn't matter. What matters is owning a piece of the most valuable computing network the world has ever seen. Fair value of Bitcoin today of somewhere around $95,000 per Bitcoin. Now, well, if the price is 83, well, again, people disagree about value. And in the last couple weeks, we went from, above fair value at 103 down to 83. Well, why? Well, a couple things happened. One, there was a big unwind of a arbitrage that's been going on since the advent of Bitcoin futures. Everyone was cheering really loudly when Bitcoin was deemed not a security, right? It was made a commodity. Oh, that's great, that's great. Well, be careful what you ask for. You might get it. It was classified a commodity because when you have a commodity, you can issue futures against that commodity, which allows very large, powerful institutions to basically control the price. So what happens in the commodities world is people can short paper commodities against a physical commodity, and the futures price is always modestly higher than the spot price, right? Because it's the future price, and that is, we're optimists, so we're always thinking it's going to go up. And so over the course of the month, that price rolls down the futures curve to the spot. It's called roll yield. It's a negative number. And that's why when you buy these ETFs that use futures, you're always losing money. Price of the commodity's up. Well, it's because of this thing called the roll yield. Well, think about this. Let's say the price difference between the future and the spot is 12%. I could sell the future. I could buy the spot or the ETF where the spot is, and I could make 12% with no risk. And then if I levered that, if I'm a really big institution like a bank or a big asset manager, I could lever that up. So when the ETFs were approved, everyone was cheering. Well, I was looking at the same day, not a coincidence, a whole bunch of futures contracts were also approved by the CME, Chicago Mercantile Exchange. All these big guys are going to buy a bunch of the ETF, but they're going to short the future against it, and that's going to cap the price. This is exactly what happened. And then the price did start to rise as people got excited about the halving because after the halving is what happened a couple weeks ago was that spread between the futures price and the spot price fell to 5 or 6%. Interest rates had gone from 0 to 5%. So now the cost of funding of that arbitrage trade, it's not worth it. So people unwound. And so there was a outflow from the ETFs and people freaked out. The bid-ask spread got super wide and the price fell. But that's a temporary phenomenon. So now it's more about traditional supply and demand dynamics. And my guess is we'll, resume the uptrend after we get through this trade war nonsense that we're going through. So here's the thing. The 4-year cycle is real. What's the 4-year cycle? So when he coded the original source code, he put in a mechanism that every 4 years, the block rewards, which means, well, why does that matter? Well, think about it. Let's say there are 10,000 miners out there and they're all mining diligently. But our costs, your costs and my costs are fixed. So if they cut the rewards in half, one of us has to go out of business unless the price rises. So we both hold on to our Bitcoin longer and we require that someone bid a higher price in order for us to sell. So there's a natural increase in the price every 4 years. The fair value basically goes up. Well, why does that matter? So because of this 4-year cycle, we get the price move in a wave above and below fair value. So the halving tends to occur after a period of crypto winter, right? Crypto spring, crypto winter, markets are falling. Crypto spring, they're kind of settling. Then crypto fall, the halving occurs and the price starts to move back towards fair value. The block rewards go down, the price has to start go up. So now fair value jumps to 95. The price starts to approach 95. Now, I will argue that we were at fair value, got a little bit above fair value, and we were on our way to maybe 1.5, 1.6 times fair value because there's not as much leverage because FTX went away and a couple of the other exchanges, were lowered the amount of leverage you could get. So we're starting that parabolic move toward 150, 160. Well, then this crazy thing happens with tariffs and all this stuff and people are panicking. Well, what happens? The stock market was super overvalued coming into this year globally, particularly in the US. People were levered up. We had the highest margin debt in history. So then NVIDIA happens, DeepSeek, and things and the Mag 7 start to sell off. People are getting margin calls. When you get a margin call and you're invested in stocks and your stocks went from here to here, you don't sell the stocks. You sell the stuff that hasn't moved. So you sell bonds or gold or Bitcoin to pay off your margin call. So that starts an unwinding of leverage. So what I think happened here was a premature unwinding of the Bitcoin trade. I could be wrong, but my guess is we'll get through this. The trade war won't happen. Trump will back down and we'll get a slow and steady resumption of the trend through summer and into fall. We'll get that last speculative blow off, but then crypto winter will be back. And how bad crypto winter gets, I don't really know, but it, given history, if we go up less, we probably go down less. So we went, down 84, down 73. So probably less. If we got to 150, would we fall to 75? That seems more. Now, if we don't get back, like if 107 was the peak, then I think this downdraft won't be as big, right? Maybe it'll only be a 30% drawdown. You need to be above fair value in order to have a really deep correction. But what I think is interesting is every one of these cycles, it's not like on a roller coaster, right? You end up at the same place. You got the highs and the lows, but you end up at exactly the same place at the end of the trip. That's not how Bitcoin works. That's not how networks work. Yes, you have this up and down, but it's a series of higher highs and higher lows. Went from nothing to $10 to $100 to $1,000 to $5,000 to $20,000 to $100,000, eventually to $1 million.
구독자분들을 위해서 10년 경력 개발자 출신 트레이더와 프롬프트 엔지니어가 같이 만든 알파빗 오토프로 지표 무료 신청을 오픈했습니다. 현재 유료로 팔고 있는 그만큼 가치 있는 지표이지만 구독과 좋아요 해주신 분들에 한해서 선착순 30명만 신청제로 받기로 했습니다. 초보자분들부터 경력이 오래된 트레이더 분들까지 굉장히 큰 도움을 받을 수 있는 지표라 도움이 되실 거라고 자부합니다. 또한 실제로 사용해보고 사용 후기까지 적어주시는 분들 5명을 선별해서 알파빗 오토프로 지표 평생 이용권을 드리려고 합니다. 신청 방법은 하단 더보기란과 고정 댓글에 나와 있으니 많은 신청 부탁드립니다. 구독과 좋아요는 영상 제작에 큰 도움이 됩니다. 성투하시기 바랍니다.